1, 0.
Welcome to MedTech Mzansi, the podcast powering South African medical device innovation, brought to you by MDMSA. Mzansi, the future of healthcare is here. Welcome to the very first MedTech Mzansi. Today, with Ashvir Maharaj, we're meeting Mr. Bruce Manuel of PMB Health. Hear his incredible journey, local triumphs, real challenges, shaping South Africa's medical future. Get ready to be inspired. Let's go.
Thank you for joining us, Bruce. To kick things off, could you tell us a bit about your journey and how you personally got involved in local manufacturing within the medical technology sector?
Oh, thanks, Ashvir. It's been an interesting journey, to say the least. I must declare I'm not a scientist. I'm not a healthcare professional. So with that declaration, I can share a bit more about my journey. I come from a very small town called Pietermaritzburg in KZN. And I was fortunate when I finished school to be given an opportunity to go play soccer overseas. Soccer is my passion. A lot of the leadership characteristic traits that I have come from partly, my soccer background, but also, I must give thanks to my parents, who raised me to be humble and with a good set of values. So having spent time in the USA also broadened my horizons, and it got me to interact with people from all over the world. And you must understand that when I went, South Africa was in that change period. I left in 1996. So I guess I left the country with some baggage. But it also helped to shape me to see things differently. And then I came back, to South Africa after graduating in the US with my Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, my core being marketing and public relations. And then I got involved in the financial sector in South Africa, and went through a process there, but just something was missing, for me personally. And after a few years in that space, I decided, it's time to write my own script, write my own chapters for my book. And around about 2009, 2010, I started the company. So the name of the company, PMB, is spawned from my hometown. It's also got my initials in there. And then I dabble a bit in the health sector space, because for me, I found that space very interesting from a business perspective. You always seem to think that you'll stay healthy for the rest of your life. But what I began to see is that from a commercial point of view, it's very viable, because people always find the money to stay healthy, especially when it's crisis mode. And that's a subject for another discussion, maybe follow-up podcast on a broader scale. So I tried a few transactions in the financial sector, didn't quite work out, for me. But for me as an entrepreneur, I got to fail early, Ashvir, and that's vitally important. I learned some valuable lessons in that time frame. So around about 2015, I began to understand, where does health and safety fit in a health, in the health sector space. And I'm being very, very, very deliberate about that, because that's way before COVID. And I'll come to that. So by and large, health and safety sits in infection prevention and control. And I started to research, speak to end users at facility level, public and private sector, just to try and understand what are those challenges, and they are vast. It's surprising to see that you can get on an aeroplane and get safety advice as part of your journey. But in a hospital facility, some facilities, health and safety is by and large neglected. And here we've got health professionals that are responsible to look at patients and support the process for better health outcomes. But if they're functioning in an unsafe environment, it becomes extremely problematic for them personally and also professionally. So, I started then applying my mind and where could I find solutions to narrow that gap in that space. And started, doing some business, transacting, being of value to the ecosystem in infection control. And then you know what happened, Ashvir?
Yeah, tell us what happened, Bruce.
COVID came along and everybody became an infection prevention specialist. Everybody was supplying masks. Everybody was manufacturing disinfectants in their garage, in their backyards. So, at around about that time, I took on a business partner. And what we decided to do is let's just step back from all of this. Let's just watch this unravel. Unfortunately, budgets were plundered. People died, most importantly. That's it. Sadly so. And behind that, budgets were looted. And we didn't want to participate in that. We wanted to be of value to the citizens of this country, and to the healthcare workers to ensure they work in safe environments. So, as a business person, the timing might have been wrong. We went into full R&D mode internally during the time of crisis. And I tell you, Ashvir, it nearly crippled us as a business because there's no revenue. Whatever you've got left in your nest egg, you are applying to R&D. But in times of crisis, you dig deep. I come back to my sporting background. Remain sane by working out in my backyard during COVID. I just kept my head down with my partner and kept working. And you know what? We found some amazing people in this country. There are brilliant people in this country. There are, scientists in this country that I think are overlooked in the broader health ecosystem. I think we need to be talking a lot more to each other in the entire health ecosystem. And the journey we have been through to where we are now, I know we can solve 90% of our health problems. We can't solve all of them because collaboration is critical. We are all interconnected in this world. So we went on a journey of discovery and we developed a product. A truly proudly South African product during the time of COVID in the early days. And from the science to the raw material to the manufacture process, everything South African. And, we are now truly a company that's of value to the health ecosystem, that ensures that hospital environments are safe, and we want them to be safer so that our healthcare professionals, visitors to facilities can feel safe, and then so in so doing contributing to improved health outcomes for the citizens of our country. We developed a world first product as a result of one of our main products. We're the only manufacturer of the product in South Africa and on the continent of Africa. So it's been Yeah, it's been an exceptional journey, Ashvir, and it's definitely one day, a story to share with the grandkids, and hopefully, my partner and I
Someone
can
for them to
continue.
look up to.
Yes, and something to aim for. And, we always leave this part last, my partner and I. We are 100% black owned. We never put that first because we are who we are. But
Yeah, 100%.
competency is critical. It's key. We are dealing with people's lives. So during the height of COVID, my business partner were hands-on.
As part of our discussion with PMB Health and the healthcare landscape, we bring you two important perspectives that weave a powerful narrative around PMB Health. You're about to hear from one of Mr. Bruce Manuel's dedicated team member of the PMB Health, who will share what his role truly means to him, offering an insider's view. And then, we'll shift focus to a local supplier to PMB Health, who will reveal how this partnership has not only invigorated their business, but profoundly impacted their life, right here in Mzansi. These are the stories that define the heartbeat of South African MedTech.
It's an incredible journey, and with someone who has a background in business and finance, a serial entrepreneur, what would you say inspired you to get involved in medical device manufacturing in South Africa?
I think it's to be of value to our country. We all know the challenges and the problems that we have in this country. Like I said, I spent time, and so did my business partner, abroad, in the USA, studying, to improve our lives. But we chose to come back to this country, and we invested in this country because we believe in this country. So, health is a critical sector. If you don't have healthy citizens, fundamentally you're going to have challenges in the economy, because it costs a lot of money to keep patients in an ICU bed, so but there's other issues attached to that, and I'm not an expert, I'm not a politician, but we have serious socioeconomic problems in this country. So how do we contribute meaningfully to help alleviate some of those problems? That's why we got involved in manufacturing, in the health sector. So is to, one, contribute to better health outcomes for the citizens of our country, and two, contribute meaningfully to the, helping to overcome some of the socioeconomic challenges that we face in this country, So, those are the two fundamental drivers for us as a business. We want to be of value, not just rands and cents value. We want to be of value to better outcomes, to contribute to making South Africans better citizens. That's what drives us every day, Ashvir.
So from your vantage point, why do you believe local manufacturing is so critically important for South Africa's economy, and more specifically for our healthcare sector?
So for us, that's personal, because the where we are as a business right now, we are responsible for our employees' children. We are more than just Big Brother. I'm personalizing this now. If we don't succeed, our employees suffer, their children suffer. So we approach it from that mindset. And be empathetic and understanding and be humble. But equally so, we have to be producing quality products that can compete not just, against imported products locally. We are already exporting, into other parts of Africa. We're looking at not just the continent of Africa. We are looking at other countries, the Americas, Europe, Southeast Asia. We're looking at those markets. So it's fundamental for us to get it right at home. If I use again the soccer analogy, if you are strong at home and you are collecting all your points at home, when you go and play away, you have the confidence, you have the belief. So, it's with those fundamentals that we want to produce, and we are producing quality products, and we want to spread that message across South Africa, that if you are thinking about, manufacturing in this country, there's a lot of us that are willing to share our experiences, our journey, because we need more manufacturers across all the sectors. So we need each other. We can solve our problems. I've mentioned this earlier. Just look at our journey during the beginning days of COVID. When I said our business was nearly crippled, but we found competent people, that are globally respected in the world of science, and look where we are today. So it is possible, and it's up to you as the individual, how you drive it, and how determined are you to make a success of it.
Hello to everyone who's listening. My name is Eric Bongani Ngongo. I'm originally from KwaZulu-Natal in Durban. I'm working for PMB Health and Safety, installing the curtains and the driver. The working with PMB, it opens so many doors for me, because I'm actually with so many people. I meet so interesting people in the workplace we've been, or we are. So PMB, I think it will grow. I wish it will grow as much as it becomes the biggest company in South Africa, because health and safety is our priority. We make the hospitals a place to work and a place to be. You won't feel like you are in the hospitals when you see our rails and our work has been done. I think PMB is changing the dynamic of the new health environment. So you will not see that you are in the hospital. I'm so very grateful to be working with our team, with the PMB, and with all the team we are installing the curtains with. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Bloom. I trade as a sole proprietor in the name and form of FB Consulting. I am privileged to be associated with PMB Health and Services, and it is due to their exposure and giving me an opportunity to render taxation services to them that I can also grow and have grown my business. It has allowed me to employ an additional staff member, and only by working together, it shows that when big businesses reach out to the little man, that we all benefit from it. Thank you very much.
So what are some of the challenges that you face as a local manufacturer, both when you started and in the current market today?
Yeah, great question there, Ashvir. So, compliance is vital. As I said, we in the health space, human lives matter. The loss of one life is too many. So the cost of compliance is challenging, but we need it. It's important that you adhere to the regulations of the country and to other countries' healthcare regulations. So, I think there has to be open dialogue between the regulators and the manufacturers, so that we can share, some of the challenges that we are seeing, And it can be quite costly, for an emerging business. Because the last thing you want is to create a pool of entities that are entering the space but aren't compliant, because they see that as a barrier. Now you've got a pool of suppliers that are supplying illegally, and that becomes a problem. So, that's one of the challenges we are seeing, the cost to remain compliant. And I must underpin this. We applaud that. That's critically important. And sadly so, Ashvir, there is still an iron curtain in this sector. We as a black-owned entity, we marvel at when we attend trade shows to see some private sector groups say they can't find competent black companies to supply a product to them. We marvel at those statements that are still being bandied about today. As I said, we always put who we are last, because competency is key. People's lives are far more important than the color of my skin. But, I think it's a contentious point, and that needs to be addressed. And sometimes it's skirted. And we're seeing it. We're still seeing it today. I listened to our president a couple of weeks ago when he was responding to questions from the members of parliament. I think it was around the budget at the time. And I'll add a little bit. So what really caught my attention as I was working and listening to the news is that he said it warms the heart of black South Africans to see black manufacturers owning or participating in the process. I applauded that, because that's who PMB is, right? And contributing, as I've mentioned, to the broader, in our own little way, to the broader challenges that we be facing as a country. So, as I said, a contentious point. You asked me about the challenges, but that's one that is not going to change overnight. We're 30 plus years into democracy, but it's still there. It's still we are seeing that veil that's still cast, in the sector, and hopefully it changes. We'd like to see that change a lot sooner rather than later.
And hopefully we do see more manufacturers come to light here in South Africa. So how do you see local production playing a role in making South Africa more self-reliant in our healthcare sector?
It plays a massive role, Ashvir, a massive role. As I said, for us as a business where we are at the moment, we are responsible for our employees' kids, well-being. If we don't get paid, how do we contribute to paying? How do we pay them? And then how do we contribute meaningfully to the country? It's taxes, direct or indirect.
Yes.
And then so it's all those nuances that are at play. Manufacturing, entrepreneurship. We need all that to come together. So I'm sure you've heard this before, and I'm sure the audience that who are listening to the podcast have heard this before. We need the 1 rand to stay circulating in South Africa before it leaves our shores. Why should it be that it leaves our shores first and then we try to bring it back at a higher rate? That shouldn't be, So that's how we are looking at this, as a business. Can we meaningfully keep that 1 rand circulating in our own circle of influence for as long as possible to touch as many South African lives as possible so their quality of life is improved? That's why it's vitally important. We need you, South Africa. We need you to support local. We just we've just watched the Springboks obliterate Italy and the Barbarians a week before. We have cricketers, finally are the world test champions. We produce boxers, swimmers, netball players, and. We are a country of high-end manufacturing of athletes that are respected around the world. But that's not my point. My point is, when the Springboks play, the country comes to a standstill. Everybody gets behind the Bokke. Banyana play, the country comes to a standstill. With the women's champions in Africa, everybody wants to support South Africa. So for me, it's the same mindset. Get behind the local entities in South Africa. Be excited about it. Yes, you want quality. Keep us honest so that we can manufacture quality, and be price competitive for your pocket. But what does that mean? It means that one rand is circulating for a longer period in our country, and we're touching way many more lives. So it's vitally important that we get the manufacturing going in this country. It's critical that we get it going and we keep it sustainable. So we need you, South Africa. We need you to back us.
There's often a perception that imported products are inherently superior. How would you respond to that?
I think that's a misconception. It's a misnomer. It comes back to what I've just said. As South Africans, we, I guess, a little bit more fortunate than most, although that's debatable nowadays, as other African countries have caught up. We've been exposed to a lot, and exposure shapes you. Look what it's done for my business partner and I, having lived abroad and come back and put our energy into this country. So I think that's a misconception. We produce or manufacture rather quality medical devices in this country. Two companies spring to mind. I won't mention their names, but they are exporting, into USA, into Europe and beyond. And they are respected for their quality, of medical devices. So, the South African people need to hear these stories that we are sharing via the podcast, so that we can share the story of the products being manufactured in this country and it comes down to exposure. So the more people talk about healthcare devices or medical devices in this country that have been made in this country, it's a journey, it's a process. So they get confidence in utilizing local products. And believe you me, we've seen imported products in the health space that are so below par, below standard. There's distributors that just cut, copy, paste certificates. And that's why we have a regulator, a SAPRA, in place, to stop all of that. But it's still there. So I think it's a misnomer. We have to do a lot more work through platforms such as yours to tell the story, to create the confidence, and let the science drive the story. Healthcare is evidence-based. So if an importer is saying X, show us, prove it to us. That's what we are being asked to do, right? In the public and private sector in South Africa. We are now exporting to some countries, as I've mentioned. We have to prove, we have to show the evidence. And we'll gladly do that. We are open to do that because we want to improve not just that environment we are walking into, but also it's an opportunity to maybe improve the product and build more confidence and trust in the local product. So there's a lot of work to do, Ashvir, in that regard. But I think it's a misnomer that imported products, are superior. There's, as I've mentioned, a lot of smart people in this country that have developed product. So, some of the smart people have left. A lot of them are returning. So I think it's in our hands. That's what Nelson Mandela said. To close off on this point, it's in our hands, and we've got a process. It's in our hands, Ashvir. As Nelson Mandela said, the more stories we share about this, the more confidence we can build in the local products.
Could you perhaps share a success story on one of your local products that has made a real impact, both locally and overseas?
Yeah, gladly so. It's always good to talk about successes. So we conducted an evaluation in a public facility a couple of years ago, and it's now a case study. So what had happened in that environment, the executive team for this facility or hospital was extremely concerned about the safety of the staff, particularly around TB. Patients come into that zone with trauma cases, and patient is then stabilized. And then, once that is done, they run a series of tests and then find the patient to have TB. So there's cross-contamination risk at play, and it's a concern, if your staff get infected. So what we did, we said, okay, let's go into that environment. Let's do the baseline testing. Let's look at how deep are the problems in that environment. So we partnered with a tertiary institution. They came in, did the independent testing, and found there were some serious problems in that environment. So we then, utilized our products over a series of a number of weeks, and the university did continuous testing as the products were being utilized in that environment. Ashvir, it comes back to what I was saying in the beginning part, that it's scary to see some of the environments that we are working in. Some of them are unsafe. It plays on the mindset of our healthcare workers. The anxiety levels are extremely high, and we need them. We need them to support the patients. To help. They really play a vital role in saving people's lives, but they need the environment safe. So there were serious problems, as I said, in the baseline testing. But thankfully so, at the end of the evaluation period, the report showed that our products played a significant role in cleaning up that particular ward. In other words, what they call lowering the microbial load, because the bacteria that were on the surfaces were above regulatory limits, and just by utilizing our products in that area over a period of time, we reduced the microbial load by up to 97%. So much so that facility said, no, they need to continue utilizing the product, and the staff appreciated that, that the products, locally manufactured products, are keeping them safe. There was a huge appreciation for that, and that's just one of the success stories that we have. There's many others, but that one truly sticks out for me, in answering your question.
That's one of the most important things, is that people don't understand. We need to keep our healthcare workers safe in order to keep our patients safe.
Correct.
And speaking about healthcare workers, in your experience, why do South Africans sometimes choose imported products over the local ones, even when our local options are available?
Yeah, another contentious question there. So, again, it comes down to exposure. That's what we are seeing. We are on a massive marketing campaign to speak to end users, show them the science, like the success story I've just mentioned, show them the evidence that what we have is good. And to answer you, just to take a side note here, pathogens that are known across the globe to all health professionals, right? They can differ by country because the strains are different, right? So what works in the US for that pathogen might not necessarily work for South Africans, right? So just keep that in mind as I answer your question. So we have to go on a journey of education to educate the end users about how good our products are. And it's not just me saying it, there's the evidence, and we're willing to continue testing to show that it does work. But unfortunately, there's some end users that have been exposed to multinationals over a number of years. They pledge silently allegiance to that. And I say that, directly, even though there is I think it's the Health Professions Council that all the doctors, need to be members of, and there's a code of ethics that they need to subscribe to. But, there are sometimes personal preferences that come into play that supersede the science. And that's most unfortunate. We see that from time to time. And we hope the regulators can step in and snuff that out, And we're not saying that we should get preference because we're local. My point is this: let the science be the evidence. Let that be the evidence. You can't have a personal preference for a multinational because you're getting a free round of golf somewhere. I mean, that can't be, and there are regulations in place, ethics that need to be adhered to, but sometimes people bend the rules, and it's most unfortunate. Talks to my other point of compliance. You need good compliance in a country, and you need a strong regulator that can snuff all these challenges out, so that the playing field is leveled, so that everybody can compete equally. So it's unfortunate that it does happen, but we leave that up to the regulators to do what they need to do to put that to an end.
So would you say that these relationships are creating a structural barrier to innovation and access for local manufacturers, particularly in the private sector?
Yeah, it can be a hindrance, It can be a hindrance because you must understand that local is by and large frowned upon, for a host of reasons. I mentioned about exposure. We've been exposed to international products for many, many years, through various platforms, more so now today, because of so many social media platforms. It's in the palm of your hand. And we've seen it by and large in the pharmaceutical sector. And also we've seen multinationals being wrapped over the knuckles for not playing by the rules. So that's why I say, it needs to be proven. It can't just be Bruce Manuel saying it. There has to be evidence. So if there's healthcare professionals that are against local because there's a particular preference towards international, then let's go apples to apple, and do a comparative study and see, which solution, the outcome thereof is better, and does it meet your need for your environment. So it can't be down to a personal preference because you have a relationship, with somebody. People's lives are at stake here. You've got to put the ego aside and let science drive the process. So it's something, as I said, I hope the regulators can put an end to.
So would you say that these practices impact public trust in healthcare advice, and should there be more transparency or regulations around these benefits?
Yes, absolutely. So it shouldn't be happening, in the first place. So you need good regulation. It's one thing to have good policy. You need to back it up with strong leadership that needs to drive the policy, into practice. So if you're not getting that, you will get things slipping through the cracks. So you've got to call it out, in my opinion. There has to be transparency in this. And by the way, on this point, we have a global problem. Antibiotics, there's resistance to it because healthcare professionals were oversubscribing antibiotics. So we've created our own problem, and oh yes, it doesn't speak to devices where the lane we are in, but that comes from the pharmaceutical side. So, that is what was happening. And I can guarantee you it's still happening today. So my answer to you is yes, there needs to be more transparency, right? And those that aren't adhering to the regulation around this, they need to be called out. Because at the end of the day, we end up paying more money for medical aid, right? But the most important point here, people die. People die. One death is too many. So this is a serious point for more discussion here, Ashvir. So I'm a fan of transparency when it comes to this.
I agree, and this is something that should really be taken seriously by all South Africans. So looking on the point of local manufacturing, let's look forward. What practical steps do you believe we can take to truly encourage greater support for our local products?
Well, we need entities like Proudly South African, of which we are a member of, to help us drive the message. We need support, from media entities, platforms such as this to share our journey, to share what's available to South Africans, how it impacts their lives in a positive way, how it improves their health outcomes. And also the other side of it, healthcare is a big business. As I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I understand the business of healthcare. So there's so many facets to this. So we need to tell the story. We need to tell the stories of manufacturers, medical device manufacturers in this country, a lot more often, so that our citizens can believe in what is being made here, can trust what is being manufactured in this country, right? And elevate local purchases of medical devices in this country. So we need our government to help us tell that story, or spread that message rather, because it comes back to the soccer analogy. If we are strong at home and we are supporting each other at home, right? When our president goes to other countries to sell South Africa, right? He's helping pave the way for companies such as PMB to export, and we export incredible products, right? So we all need each other in the system. So we need to tell the story a lot more often. We need the stakeholders in the ecosystem to tell the story, and key for me, it needs to be evidence-based and evidence-driven. You can't just say it. You need to have the science to back it up. And if that's in play, then locally, we need that support to procure local, so that we then can start looking at the bigger picture of exporting. So I said it earlier, we need you, South Africa. We need you to support the local manufacturers, and we need you to understand what we do and how it impacts your lives. Because on the back end, my business partner and I, we are responsible for our employees. We are responsible for their children. We are responsible to improve their quality of life. So without your support, South Africa, all those other values go straight out the window. So we need each other.
I think you summed that up lovely. Thank you, Bruce. If there's one last message you can leave our viewers and to all South Africans, what would it be?
Yeah, be careful what you see on the TV screens, on the radio, on your social platforms. Be inquisitive, especially with health products. Be inquisitive. Ask the awkward questions. Don't always necessarily believe what's on the label. Your health matters, and a healthy you is a healthy South African, is a positive South African, so that you can contribute meaningfully to our country. We all want a better quality of life. All of us, believe you me, no matter what color you are. So, my parting message is be inquisitive, ask the questions, read the label, ask where it's made, and ask why. Why isn't it made in South Africa?
And that wraps up another impactful MedTech Mzansi episode. From Bruce Manuel's dedication to his employees' upliftment, today showed us why buying local, supporting made in Africa, is vital. It's how we build a stronger, healthier Mzansi. If you're inspired by these journeys into South African medical device innovation and local manufacturing, then like, subscribe, and share our channel. We're committed to telling the stories of our entrepreneurs. Join us next time for episode 2, featuring Mr. Gokul Nair, creator of the innovative Easy Squeezy device. You won't want to miss it. From the team at MDMSA, thank you for watching MedTech Mzansi. Until next time.